So culture is a way of to nurture something. On the other hand, like we swap architecture with agriculture, and we may apply certain kind of architectural technology to the architecture and to nurture a new culture. So that's the basic explanation of the meaning of my topic. I want to briefly review what kind of urban spirals have been in the development of the urbanization all over the world. And the first example is Chicago, where maybe the origin of urban spiral, that kind of American type. From this picture, we can see, this way of urban spiral in space is not very much chaotic. We still can see the quite very well managed plan, fabric and texture over here. And then we go to some similar countries such as Toronto in Canada, and we also can see this kind of quite organic planning type. And so this is an enlarged picture. And then we go to Europe, and we can see the quite different types from that of North America. In Europe, we can see a much more organic way of the planning. You can see the city is not that kind of grid, orthogonal grid system. It's more this kind of complicated geometrical system. And then between the city and the farmland, the edge is very natural instead of like that kind of very rigid geometrical division. And then we go to Hong Kong. Of course, Hong Kong is a hilly city. It's not on the plan, right? But one thing we should learn from Hong Kong is, in Hong Kong, there's a very sharp distinction between the city and the rural area. So this border is very clear. So I think this is a very good point I have to point out in today's lecture, because we have to go to see what happens in China. So this is in Hong Kong, and Tokyo. It is much better. If we see the Tokyo's picture, so from these pictures, I just feel there's a problem, with the land use in China. And so this is a picture in Shanghai. Shanghai is an area, full of water, right? So Shanghai is very rich in water systems. But once again, if we compare this one with Tokyo, we can see, that water is not very much respected, and also this kind of layout are quite chaotic, less organic than those in States or in Europe. So first case is a proposal we made in Shanghai, in Jiadian, which is a county about an hour from downtown Shanghai, very close. And we are giving a proposal for a scientific park. And of course, this park will occupy a large amount of the farmland. And in this case, we'll show how we intend to preserve the farmland and to use the farmland. So those white lines are the planned roads, and this is the existing water system, and those are the farmlands. So we are not intending to preserve the farmlands, but also we want to preserve this kind of lifestyle. So we propose a concept of dynamic FAR. In the course of the urban development, at the very beginning, maybe the FAR is very low, and later on, the FAR can be added and can take those farmlands to develop the future city. We just do this collage to compare if farmland can intervene into urban landscape, whether it will change or worsen the urban landscape. So this is a typical picture of urban, and then we do this collage, and we almost can see any kind of difference between them. And then we do some more ironic and dramatic collage, such as this. For example, like if we do urban farming in the Tiananmen Square, something like this, it doesn't seem like any kind of unusual things. The main street of the planned new city. And then we can have this linear open space. And this linear open space preserves all the existing farmlands. And then we have this kind of rhythmic urban views, this kind of vista towards the river over here. And we just developed this low-rise offices over here, and open up this vista over here. So this is the early stage of the urban development, when all those kind of things, the buildings are not necessary to be very, very tall, and people can enjoy this kind of suburban landscape. But later on, of course, the urban will be developed into a high-rise, and then the high-rise will be built in these areas, to go to etc. So one of the good things for this kind of strategy is when they build the high-rise, they need not to demolish the low-rise. So that's the a very critical issue in today's urban development, because whenever they develop a high-rise, so they have to demolish low-rise, and actually it's not very well trade off, because if you demolish one low-rise, you should at least build like 1.5 to 2 more of the low-rise to compensate the money you have to pay for those guys. And also another strategy following this is, if we have this one at the very beginning, we have this kind of thing, and after this high-rise is built, and then the value of this one will be added, and people can enjoy and share the value of the urban development, rather than today, like there are so many, conflicting values and conflicting things happening in China. People try to defend their own low-rise property, and so in this strategy, I think is more what we call 我们现在说叫和谐社会是吧 ？harmonic society, right? So it's more harmonic approach to benefit both. So this is the future science city in Beijing. We made a proposal for the core area of this city. The location is somewhere here, and all of your airport is here. So very close to the airport. So they want to build a landmark here. So we propose a horizontal landmark as this path. It's a huge horizontal landmark. So we designed something like this. Half of this is very much dense urban area, and the other part is the open space here, preserving almost all existing farmlands. And in between, there's a linkage of this horizontal landmark, which is a path, as well as lots of facilities, amenities connected to this path. And those things can be an extension of the offices over here. For example, like they can do brainstorming over here, they can have meeting here, we can have lecture, all the seminars over here. Social dimension to the strategy of preserving the farmlands. So this is a quite famous story, almost like all our Chinese know. So it's a story about two friends, but they have a huge, social difference. One is a lord's son, another one is a servant's son. And when they were young, they played together. So because upon then, there's no any kind of social concern between them, right? So the natural aspect is more outstanding. So people don't have any kind of barrier in between. So they can play very well. But the story was written by a very famous Chinese writer. His name is Lu Xun. And he told us the story later on. So after 30, 40 years, after he came back to his hometown and met with his buddy. But now, the social aspects becomes stronger and stronger. So he feels a very strong sense of that kind of social difference between them, and it's almost impossible for them to communicate So it is a story like this. But so I want to borrow this story to tell what we are doing now in urbanization. I think urbanization is not about the material, but it's more about the people. And people, each one has its own social background, social aspects, and their own social status will be changed. And in the course of urbanization, of course, is a course of changing of the people's social status, and how this kind of fast food type urbanization will affect the social status of the people. I think it's another issue for us too. So these two buddies, they were getting well when they were young. So they played together in this farmland, in that area. But later on, each one took their own life and career path. And one, first is the urban, the hometowns changed from rural to urban, and also these two guys, their social status are changed. One still remains as a farmer, and another one, of course, he's hardworking students like everyone here, right? And took another path and eventually went abroad to NII to be a PhD, things like that. Yeah. And then just recently, China has a very ambitious plan to attract those overseas scholars, scientists to come back, and then this guy, he was attracted by the plan and took back his son with him, go back to this, and also so he in the airplane he read this information about the future science city, and the plane flies over this area, and of course this guy, he still remains as a farmer in this area. But the good thing for preserving this part of farmland is this guy, he still can remain his own status as a farmer, so he need not to be changed. And this guy, he occupied a nice office building designed by my Song, and and then he can oversee the farmland. Also, sometimes he will do his research, brainstorming, whatever, on the path in the farmland. And he can go fishing or talking with friends here, and also by this kind of social events on the path, he starts to make lots of new friends. And if he couldn't think out anything in his office, he can go to lay down on the farmland and do some kind of creative thinking, whatever. And then one day, those two kids of their sons, they met, and so they play together, and then they start to find out, his father is doing a lecture here, and then the fathers, they meet again, and so they recognize each other, and they shake hands, and then they recall their child life, whatever. And the most important thing is here, right? So I try to use this story to tell, that because his job is preserved because of the land is preserved, right? So he's not necessary to change his own social status. So he doesn't feel any kind of lost in the new urbanization, right? So each one is respected. So this is very important because you have your own resource of your own production, right? And you're respected in the society. So in this sense, there's no any kind of social or class distinction between them now, because especially under today's more and more democratic society.